You can have more than you've got because you can become more than you are. That's the challenge.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Golden Belt Buckle Podcast. With everything going on with the Charlie Kirk assassination, it seems like every story is taking a back seat to that right now, and understandably so. Everybody's waking up to this horrifying reality that there is likely a terrorist cell that was responsible for taking him out, and there's a massive amount of backlash going on right now, right? With people losing their jobs left and right because they're going online, glorifying this type of psychopathic violence, and so it's everything else is kind of taking a back seat. So it's not that there's not stories, that there's not things to talk about. There's a lot to talk about that's going on in the trucking industry right now. It's just, it seems like there's weightier matters, right? So today I'm going to keep it light. I'm going to tell you I got in trouble. Every now and again, we're going to keep this light today. Oh, by the way, if you like the content, watch some of my other videos, like and subscribe. I hope you won't be disappointed. Anyways, so we're going to keep it light today, okay? If you want something light, just watch this. So I got in trouble. I got smacked on the wrist. Every now and again, I might be tired when I go into work, but you catch me at the wrong time. I'm likely to be very politically incorrect. I'm a working man. I work with other working men, and we have a tendency of telling things like it is. So every now and again, our kind of rough trucking, our trucking world slash laborer world, it collides with the corporate world. And you know how corporate world is. Corporate types are to be politically correct, right? They have to choose their words very wisely, as do we. We all have to choose our words wisely, right? But it's more what they specialize in, right? The office culture, right? The best way to describe the difference between the worlds is watching the TV show called The Office, right? You have the guys working in the warehouse who just don't care. Then you have the guys working up in the office that are doing all the DEI training and all that sort of stuff, right? The people in the warehouse would receive the same training, but it wouldn't stick because that's just not how the culture works. Well, that's kind of how it is with us sometimes. So anyways, our worlds collide, and I was in a meeting. It was a town hall, and somebody asked the question. They said, hey, why is it our cost of living, why is it our raise never covers the cost of living increases, right? So we're talking about inflation versus our yearly raise. And management gave a standard management answer, right? They said, well, if you look across our industry, your wages are actually very competitive with other everyone else doing the same job. And I didn't really feel like that answered the question. My biggest curse sometimes, I have a hard time shutting my mouth. So I wrote my comment / question in, and just saying, hey, the reason why we make the league minimum, and the reason why our CEO makes millions every year is because he's worth more than we are. We're easier to replace than he is. Therefore, we make a whole lot less money. And I said, do you agree? And management said, no, we don't agree with that statement. And, as if supply and demand has nothing to do with the reality of what I said. And so they gave some other corporate answer, and we all had a laugh in my area. We had a laugh about it. We kind of made fun of it. And then I get called into the principal's office the next day. Apparently I really ruffled some feathers with my comment and my question, asking if they agreed with me. And I wasn't sure what it was I did. I'm still not exactly sure what it was I did, other than I didn't give a politically correct answer. But the truth is, they never answered his question, and I'm going to answer that question more in depth right now. So here's the thing. All right, we're truck drivers. This has been a question that's come up for years and years since I've been driving a truck. Everybody always complains about their raise. And here is a hard pill for all of us to swallow. Now, Jim Rohn used to say, if you want to be worth more than you are, you need to become more than what you are, right? And, so take For example, when I was younger, I was a dishwasher. Actually, let's go beyond that. Let's go back when I first started working. I started cutting grass. I solved the, I don't know, $2 an hour problem. When I got washing dishes, I solved the $7.50 hour problem. When I got my AZ license, I solved the, well, at the time it was like $18 to $20 an hour problem. Then over time, I got raises, and the industry set the standard a little bit higher, and I solved the $25 an hour problem. And slowly I was able to solve the $30 an hour problem, only because, again, the wages have gone up. But I've never advanced beyond being a truck driver. And so because I haven't advanced beyond being the truck driver, that's where stagnancy has happened to me. My wages will only go up with as much as my employer wants to give me. And they're not going to give me much more than a couple of cents every year unless something happens where they start losing drivers, they can't fill their seats, or there's a shortage of truckers in the industry, right? Unless that happens, you're not getting a big raise. So, because if there's too many drivers, then that drives your value down. And even when I was just researching the, I think it was the LMIA in Canada, Labor Market Impact Assessment government documents. It was talking about why they have this, and the whole reason they have this temporary foreign worker program is to ease the burden, right? Ease the burden on the labor market, which makes it easier for employers to hire people, to find people. And really, the point was that it was to drive the costs down. Well, that's your paycheck, right? To drive the cost of your paycheck down. That's why temporary foreign workers are brought over, to saturate the market with workers, with AKA truck drivers, to drive your wages down so that your employers don't have to give you a raise, so that freight can be shipped a lot cheaper, right? That's the whole point. So if you're a truck driver, your whole goal should be that you don't help your company necessarily recruit unless they're going to work a deal out with you where they really compensate you for it, or at least to understand that if you do help them recruit, you're making it easier for them to get rid of you, right? That's the whole. You got to just recognize your own self-interest there, right? Whenever the government talks about bringing in more temporary foreign workers, your interest is, wait a minute here. If I do that, that's going to hurt my wages. Maybe the cost of living will go down in other areas, but my wages will also go down or remain stagnant. So that's the basics. Now, if you want to really make a whole lot more money than you're making, you need to not be a truck driver. You need to get into some kind of a high-end sales or some other. You need to advance. Even if you want to stay in the trucking industry, maybe become an operations manager. Like there is only so high you're going to go in this industry, right? In fact, to go really high, to make, well, I shouldn't say that. You don't necessarily need the education, because I know people who have done it. They've gone really high. But you have to become good at networking. You have to become good at selling. You have to eat, sleep, and breathe the business, right? And you need to become more than just a steering wheel holder. You need to become more than just take things from point A to point B. You need to show people that you can manage a project. You need to show people that you're responsible. You have a crazy, insane sense of personal responsibility, right? There's just a lot you have to do that requires you to be more than a freight delivery driver, right? You need to learn business, right? And so, I've known people who've done it. They've excelled beyond, but you have to be willing to get out of that driver's seat and get out of trucking. Maybe not out of transportation, but out of the driver's seat. So, because I'm not going to say drivers come a dime a dozen. Good drivers are not a dime a dozen, but trucking companies, I'll put it to you like this. When I was working at my last company, I was really engaged in the business. I worked really hard. I did a lot of miles. I had no life, but I always had a good attitude about it too. Okay, I was really like a company guy, and there was no difference in my pay versus the guy that was not. Okay, they didn't care if you were engaged or not engaged. That didn't matter to them, right? I could either run all those miles joyfully, or they would just get someone who would do it kicking and screaming. There was no difference in the value. They would make both of us do the job. So essentially we're both worth the same amount of money, right? That's how it works. That's how they look at your value. Are you doing the job? They don't care if you're happy about it. They don't care if you like it. They just are concerned the freight is getting delivered. So if you're wondering why all your efforts aren't going anywhere, that's why. That's why you're not being paid more than the base level. You're probably stagnant in your job and you need to progress. So anyways, that's the video. That's the real answer why you're not getting paid more. If you like the content, check out some of my other videos. Like I said, today I'm keeping it very chill because I don't even know if this video is going to get many views. There's so much going on. I'm just trying to keep it positive. I feel sick from everything going on. My stomach's hollow at the moment. So anyway, if you like the content, like and subscribe for more. Stay up to date. Till next time, cheers, keep your rubber side down.